Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and today Apple released iOS 18.4 Beta 2. iOS 18.4 Beta 2 is available to developers, and iOS 18.4 Public Beta 2 should be out soon by the time you're watching this video, or probably by sometime tomorrow. Now, iOS 18.4 Beta 2 is available to all iOS 18 supported devices, including the iPhone 12 this time around, as well as it being the first beta for the iPhone 16e. This update came in at 1.34 gigabytes on my iPhone 16 Pro Max and was about the same size on all the other devices here. Apple also released iPadOS 18.4 Beta 2, watchOS 11.4 Beta 2, and all the regular updates such as tvOS, macOS, visionOS, HomePodOS, and older updates as well. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the build number and talk about what's new. So we'll go into Settings, then General, then About. As you can see, the build number is 22E5216H, and this particular update does include quite a few changes and features. Now, the first thing has to do with the modem update. There is a modem update going from Beta 1 to Beta 2, so you should see that. And as far as new features, well, the first new features come across to all iPhones that support iOS 18.4 Beta 2, and that has to do with messages. And within messages, Apple has added new emoji. These bring this up to the latest Unicode standard, and you can see a radish or a rootless vegetable, a harp, a fingerprint, a splatter, a leafless tree, a shovel, as well as a face with bags under the eyes and a flag for Sark. So these are all new. Again, Apple doesn't come up with these. These are just to comply with the latest Unicode standard. Something else that we have that's new that carries across not only to the iPhone 16 series, but also the iPhone 15 series that you can see here. If we go into Control Center, scroll down, we'll add some new controls. Of course, last week we gained the ambient music, but now we have a new section for Apple Intelligence and Siri. So we have Talk to Siri, Type to Siri, and Visual Intelligence. So now we can activate Visual Intelligence right from the Control Center on an iPhone 15 Pro model. So you can go in, use Visual Intelligence just like you could on the iPhone 16 series. Another update we have that Apple first showed on the iPhone 16e is within our settings. If we go to the Action button, we now have the option for Visual Intelligence. We can now utilize Visual Intelligence right from the Action button, and this carries across not only to the iPhone 15 models, but also the iPhone 16 models. So anything that has the Action button can now be assigned this button here for Visual Intelligence. So you can now utilize the camera control or the Action button, which is great. You can pick whatever you want. Last week, we gained priority notifications. So under notifications within settings, if you go to prioritize notifications, you'll see we have the new option here. This time around with Beta 2, we now have prioritized notifications from, and we can select the individual application and disable it for any application we choose. So just turn off the switch if you want, and you won't get prioritized notifications for that. Small update, but it's a very nice update. Now, you may have already noticed we have a new Apple Vision Pro app. This is available on all iPhones if you have an Apple Vision Pro, and the first time you open it up, you get a new splash screen that says Discover New Content, Get Your Vision Pro Ready, and Get More from Vision Pro. If we go into the app itself, and if we scroll down, you'll see things such as tips for getting started, fit and care, essentials, and then Aaron's prescription inserts, and you can view those in health. And then we have a user guide and more. So this is just a nice update. I would expect more in this app a little bit later, but it makes it a little bit easier for fit and care and much more. So I think it's great that they've added that. Something else that's new that carries across to all devices has to do with the App Store. If we go into the App Store, and maybe we have a bunch of different applications to update, so we'll go to our account in the upper right. When we go to update something, we'll go ahead and update a couple of these. We now have the option for a pause button, so we can pause it and then resume it later on if we want to. So that's something they've finally updated, and it's available on all iPhones with this beta. Another thing that's new has to do with the wallet. If we go into the wallet, in the upper right, if we tap the three-dot menu that's new here, we now have subscriptions and payments. We can go into this, and any subscription or payment is now available to revoke the actual subscription. So you can go into this, I'm not sure why I have this, and then we can revoke the payment authorization if we want to. Within the Shortcuts app, if we go ahead and add an action, and search for an action, there's a new one for change calendar setting. So this is a new option where you can change the calendar setting if you want to use this, set an all-day event default, alert times, and more. If we go back into settings, scroll down to accessibility, and then if we're using touch with Assistive Touch now has a new top-level menu item for Visual Intelligence. So if you have Visual Intelligence, you'll have this option here if you want to use Assistive Touch as well. Apple also announced a few other things today. Tim Cook specifically announced an upcoming Air event this week. If we go to X, and on Tim Cook's profile on X, you'll see it says this week, there's something in the air. This is hinting at the new MacBook Air. They've used this phrase before, so I would expect maybe a new M4 MacBook Air, as well as maybe new iPad Air models updated as well. Those are running low in stock apparently, so we could see that as soon as tomorrow. Something else they announced today has to do with Friday Night Baseball. It returns to Apple TV Plus on March 28th, so that will be available as well if you're using the TV Plus app. On Apple's public-facing website for the release notes, if we go into this, we do have a few new things here. Nothing crazy, but just some new features for developers. They've resolved some issues with Apple Intelligence. Some Apple Intelligence features are unavailable until device is rebooted. They've resolved that issue. There's some known issues still remaining for Apple Intelligence, as well as some deprecations, resolved issues with notifications, and more. As far as other bugs and bug fixes, well, one thing I noticed is the saturation bug has not been resolved. You'll see it desaturates there. It seems like every week it switches back and forth. Some weeks it saturates, some weeks it desaturates. So that's a bit odd. As far as other bugs, well, we'll have to wait and see, but so far the stutter and lag seems to be fixed, and we'll talk about that in a moment with performance. As far as releases this week, well, I would expect iOS 18.4 Beta 3 as soon as maybe next week at this point. We could be on a weekly schedule. If not, maybe the following week. However, we do know that Apple's releasing iOS 18.4 to the public in April, so we may still be on a bi-weekly basis. We won't know until, of course, next week. We could also see iOS 18.3.2 since we are a ways out and we only have iOS 18.3.1 signed as far as issues. So if we needed to downgrade or update, that's the only version available. So we could see an update very soon. However, we haven't really heard any additional details on that. When it comes to performance, so far it seems much more responsive, doing things such as just going into music, swiping home. I haven't seen any lag yet. I haven't seen any slowdowns. And if we go into the camera, it's nice and fast. And even on the iPhone 11, which is running beta 2 now, if we swipe home, it's nice and smooth. If we go maybe over into the app library and scroll, ProMotion seems nice and smooth, and this is definitely smoother than what we had before. So there's definitely an improvement here, but again, it will take a few days to measure this, and we'll talk about this more in detail in the weekend follow-up. As far as the overall heat, well, it was quite warm for quite a long time, and it took a while to process in the background, and I would imagine this will take a few days to do that. So it is a little bit warmer than you would expect, but again, that's typical when you do a major update. If we take a look at the overall battery, well, battery life, battery health here, I have 100% with 137 cycles. And over the last 10 days when I was running beta 1, battery life was pretty poor. So we don't know if this will increase over the next couple of days with beta 2, but I only had 2 hours and 41 minutes of screen active time and used 75% of my battery. The other day, 2 hours and 36 minutes and used almost 100% of my battery. Today so far, well, we're doing okay. 1 hour and 22 minutes of screen active time, and we're down to 71%. So we'll have to give it a few days to see what it's like, but overall it seems to be okay. But again, it takes a few days to measure that. As far as storage, well, this update and previous updates have taken up quite a bit. We'll give it a moment to load here. Scroll to the bottom. And you can see now we're taking up 7.67 gigabytes for Apple Intelligence, 12.43 gigabytes for iOS. So 20 gigabytes of storage is quite a lot, but any update overwrites it, and of course system data goes up and down as needed. So if you're wondering if you should install iOS 18.4 Beta 2, well, at this point, if you're on Beta 1, then absolutely. But if you're not on a beta, I would hold off. Wait and see how this goes. Wait until the public beta is out. And if we know it's stable by the weekend, of course, I'll let you know in the follow-up. As far as benchmarks, let's go ahead and take a look at those. And I ran them twice as the initial benchmarks were not that great, but that's typical once you install an update. And I had a pretty good score of 3,554 for single core, 8,771 for multi-core. Compared to what we had with Beta 1, this is definitely a little bit higher, so it seems to be running smoother, and the performance shows that as well. So that's everything so far in iOS 18.4 Beta 2. Now, if you found any additional features I didn't mention in this video, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Of course, I'll link this wallpaper in the description like I normally do, and if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.